Welcome in, everyone. It is Betting Weekly Live. You're with Steve Wyss and James Eastham. Absolute pleasure to have you on the show today, James. Welcome aboard. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Steve. It's great to be here. It's my first daily show since we started this season, so it's kind of weird to see you in this context, Steve. We normally do the weekly show, don't we, talking about French and Italian football, but different sort of games today. Really pleased to be here and really looking forward to it.
Yes, I think we did the odd live show last year on Sundays, but yeah, I mean, I was looking through, looking for some French games today. I could pick your brains on, but there's nothing of significance. So we are going to be talking about the Champions League qualification, 4 massive games, and also Copa Libertadores in South America. That competition is ramping up, and then later on, a bit of a market review, looking at some significant bets and wagers on Bet Rivers. And looking back yesterday, actually, at some winners and losers. Welcoming everyone. Thanks very much for the kind comments so far. It was a great show yesterday. Myself and RJ kind of killed it. And to be honest, in general, these betting weekly live shows, it's been a great way for the handicappers to sort of showcase what we can do on a day-to-day basis. There's a lot of winners that have been found, or leans, or just good general bits of advice. UEFA Champions League qualification, I was saying yesterday to RJ, these to actually progress to the league phase, the new league phase now, it's worth about $20 million for a club. And that is massive money for any club in Europe, apart from, say, a Premier League team. Even a Premier League team is not going to turn it down, obviously. But I mean, for some of these, the pressure is ramped up. And there were some suggestions yesterday that the first leg might be tight because of the added pressure. But we saw quite a few goals, James. What just general thoughts on that, on the pressure sort of side of things? Because, common sense might say, go for tight games, but there have been a lot of goals around.
There have been a lot of goals around. I think the first thing to say, Steve, is that these games are absolutely massive for the clubs involved. A lot of the people watching out there and the bettors with Bet Rivers, and we're guilty of it ourselves, aren't we? We focus on the big 5 leagues in Europe, the Premier League, France, Italy, Germany, Spain. But further down the football pyramid in Europe, these games in July and August to qualify for the big European competitions are absolutely huge. Has a big effect on budgets, has a big effect on what you can do, not only for the rest of this season, but planning ahead over the next 2 or 3 years. If you get through these rounds and get into the serious business when it starts in September. So they're really massive. In terms of the games being open, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we still tend to think, I guess, a bit old school about pressure leading to defensive football. I think really any coach who's smart and wants to get through, he probably play to his strengths. So if you've got teams out there in the qualifiers whose strength attacking, go for it, would be my view. Looking at the markets on some of the games we'll be dealing with today, Steve, overs is quite short, isn't it? Over 2.5 goals on some of the games we'll be talking about is quite short. So it looks like the markets are expecting quite a lot of goals in tonight's matches as well.
Yeah, well, let's get straight into these matches. There's 4 huge qualifying games. I'm going to put the graphic on the screen there now. FC Midtjylland against Slovan Bratislava. That's Denmark against Slovakia. Dynamo Kyiv of Ukraine against Red Bull Salzburg of Austria. Young Boys Bern, Switzerland against Galatasaray of Turkey. Malmo of Sweden against Sparta Prague of the Czech Republic. And we're going to let's start with the Dynamo Kyiv game against Red Bull Salzburg. Dynamo Kyiv, there's been some money for Dynamo Kyiv today, actually. They've been backed in now to plus 185 on the money line. Salzburg are drifted to plus 133. The over and under goal line. There's been general money for the overs as well. Not huge, not a huge drift toward rise towards the overs, but there has been money for the over in this particular match. The first thing to say about this game, it's not actually played in the Ukraine for obvious reasons, is it? But I know you've got quite a strong pick on this match, James. Dynamo Kyiv against Red Bull Salzburg.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at the goals, Steve, being so short on this match. It's interesting about the move you've picked out there, Dynamo Kyiv. Yeah, we've got them on the graphic there, haven't we, at plus 205. It's quite a big move for them. But Yeah, looking at the prices and looking at the way the two sides have played, I do think it will be an open game. Salzburg have started their league season really well. 3 wins in 3, I think they're on at the moment. And it'll be a tough game for Kyiv. Salzburg are the favourites. And obviously it being neutral territory in Poland, you'd think would play into Salzburg's hands rather than playing into Dynamo Kyiv's hands. But yeah, on the goals, I like the look of the goals here. I think if you look at the previous rounds that these two sides have come through, there've been plenty of goals. I think Dynamo Kyiv, they beat Rangers in the last round. I think it was 3-1 on aggregate. The round before that, I think they beat Partizan Belgrade on. I think there were 11 goals over the two legs of that tie. So plenty of goals in the Kyiv games. And fairly similar from Salzburg. I think it was 5-4 on aggregate for them in the last round against 20 of the Netherlands. So I think you've got two teams here who, looking at those stats, we're obviously quite early in the season, aren't we? But it looks like it's going to be a matchup here between two teams who are better going forward than defending. And it might be that the price is too short for people on overs. I don't know, Steve. It's minus 162 when I looked about an hour ago for the over 2.5. So you might be better looking at over 2.75 if you're looking for a slightly bigger price there.
Minus 167 now on over 2.5. There has been some money for the over. I do like the over as well here, but I actually quite like playing that line, even though the odds are not quite, a bit skinnier than you might want, because I think there's a good chance of exactly 3 goals, actually, if I'm being honest. Pep Linders is in charge of Red Bull Salzburg, the former assistant under Jurgen Klopp, of course. So you're going to get quite a bit of sort of Klopp. I mean, I'm not going to say it's going to be heavy metal football in Salzburg, but, you know, these assistants do learn a lot from who they've been under for a long time. So we like the goals there. Dynamo Kyiv against Red Bull Salzburg. Welcome in to Ryan Guertin, who is the mighty RJ. Had a great day yesterday on the show, and RJ's actually got a pick today on the. If anyone who follows that Because We Win on X will know that he's got a big pick in the Malmo against Sparta Prague game. I can tell you now that 75% of the tickets are on Malmo in this game. 98% of the money is on the over-under market, though, and the over 2.5 goals is the most wagered here in this particular game. Over is the most popular pick with Bet Rivers so far. I know you quite like the goals as well. I like Malmo here. Malmo on a quarter Asian handicap, minus 0.25. This is a massive game for Malmo. It's been a while since they've been in the Champions League group stage, and usually the crowd is massively up for this. They can really sell out the place. It can become a massively intimidating venue. And I actually think both teams may well win the home leg in this tie. I think Sparta Prague is never a place you want to go to, particularly having to get a result. Malmo are right in the middle of their season, James. I think that's really helped them. They've been able to rotate their squad around as well. Sparta Prague have been inconsistent. I didn't think they were that amazing against Stal Bucharest in the previous round. I think Malmo take first leg lead. So I'm going to back them on a minus a quarter ball handicap here. RJ likes the over 2.5 goals, and you are in the over goal camp as well.
I am in the over goal camp as well, Steve. I bow to your knowledge on Scandinavian football. For the viewers out there, Steve would never blow his own trumpet here, but he's an absolute expert on the Scandi League. So, I take what you're saying about Malmo. It's a good point about them being mid-season. Again, some viewers might not know this, but obviously not all the leagues in Europe work on a sort of an August to May basis. And Malmo, what is it? I think they're 19 games into the season. They're 9 points clear, I think, at the top of their league. So they're already up and running and match ready for this. I do like the overs. I think if you look at the stats on these two teams, it points towards overs. I think 8 of Malmo's last 10 matches in all competitions has been over 2.5 goals. And I think Sparta Prague have played 9 games in all competitions so far this season. I think 6 of their 9 games have had over 2.5 goals. So I'm with RJ on this one. I thought the price actually of minus 118 on over 2.5 goals, I think that's pretty good on those stats. It's a stats-based selection from me rather than watching the two teams as much as you'll have seen of Malmo, Steve. But yeah, I think on the basis of the stats going into it, overs at minus 118, I think it's a pretty good shout.
Yeah, I think it may well be an open game of football here. Malmo got a very good manager, Henrik Rydstrom, who was in the running for the Brighton job. Brighton are like at identifying talent, both players and managers. If you're after a goal scorer in this game, I would have to take a look at Sebastian Nanasi at plus 200. He is a player very much in the shop window for Malmo. I'm not sure he's going to be here after August. I think they're just keeping him for the Champions League run, really, to try and qualify for the group stage. He's a really fine prospect. For Sparta Prague, I would look at Vajko Birmancevic, former Toulouse player who actually played for Malmo. It's amazing how many times a player goes back to his former club and scores. I can't actually find anytime odds to score for Birmancevic with Bet Rivers right now. They've still got Derek Cornelius priced up here for Malmo. He's now moved to Marseille. Don't be betting on him. But Birmancevic would be my goal scorer pick for Sparta Prague. I think something like 3-1, 2-1 to Malmo would be a very good shout here. Okay, let's just go back to some other... Let's put the odds back on screen again because there's two more matches to talk about. A lot of interest in young boys against Galatasaray, James, the Swiss side. And don't worry, I think they've got a few veterans in their squad. For those who might be wondering, it's not just about the name. But they've had a bad start to the season, the young boys, domestically, not won a game in their own league, although they did win a cup match 10-0 at the weekend. Galatasaray, I'm surprised that the coefficient must mean that a Turkish team doesn't get in the group stages automatically, which surprised me a little bit. They've got to qualify here. They are the champions of Turkey. They're the favourites, are Galatasaray for this game. For me, they look a little bit too short here, but I think it's because of young boys' bad form. What would be your play here, James?
Yeah, I would agree with that, Steve. I like Galatasaray on paper. I think it looks a strong side. Yeah, not to go deep in the competition, but to get through to the group stage. If you look at who might be in the starting lineup or on the bench tonight for Galatasaray, you got Mauro Icardi. I think he's just coming up in the Speak of the Devil in the comments there. Yeah, if he leads the attack, you've got some real quality up front there for Galatasaray. You've got Michy Batshuayi, the Belgium striker, might be on the bench, we think, for Galatasaray as well, who, by the way, is always very dangerous off the bench, isn't he, Steve? You remember when he was at Marseille, he didn't always need a long time to get goals, really. So I like Galatasaray, but I tend to agree with you. It's a little bit skinny, is that price. I wouldn't be pulled in to be backing them away from home at plus 100.
Now. There's been money. There has been money for Galatasaray. I think they're going to be heavily backed tonight because people are going to look at young boys' form and think, what's going on?
Yeah, and I think maybe people who don't follow the Swiss Super League very much would be looking maybe quite late, right, at the form of these teams before the game. Young boys don't really like them. It's a terrible start, isn't it, to the season for them? They should have been doing better when you look at the teams they've actually faced in the Super League. To not have won any of their 5 games so far is really bad. But the key thing for me is the goals. I can't look beyond the goals here because of young boys, really. They've conceded, I think it's 13 goals in their 6 league games so far. Terrible record. I think that's conceded at least 2 goals in all their matches. And Galatasaray have scored 4 in their first two games in the Turkish league. So I think Galatasaray will get among the goals, but I wouldn't rule out young boys getting a goal as well. I think they can have a good crowd at home. We've seen that before from them in some of their European games in the not too distant past. So I like the look of the goals markets here. Over 2.5 is very short, which is all about that young boys' defensive form and I think the threat of Icardi in particular. But over 2.75 goals at minus 129, that'll be my pick on this game, because as long as there are 3 goals in the game, then you're going to get paid out, aren't you? And it's one of those matches where we could see 4, we might even see 5 goals, So I really like that. Just one other way, if you do fancy Galatasaray to make them pay, Galatasaray and both teams to score is plus 245. So if you do like Galatasaray, it's a big price. Yeah, I think young boys at home, I know it was only a cup game, Steve, against an amateur team, but I think if you've won 10-0 at the weekend, you're going to fancy yourself to get a goal, right? So if you're looking for a way to make Galatasaray pay, maybe have a look at Galatasaray to win and the both teams to score market, because I think plus 245 is an appealing pick.
There's a very prominent Swiss football account that I follow, and there was a very good tweet yesterday. I'm trying to find him now. His name's Craig King, actually. He kept basically an insight into all the cup matches at the weekend. And the review of the Young Boys game was won 10-0. It was only against an amateur team, but it was just what they needed. So, I mean, I suppose any team winning 10-0 is going to enjoy life,
It's
aren't they?
going to help.
So,
yeah, it's going to help.
It's a tough place to go. The Wankdorf Stadium in Bern. I actually went past it last year when I was in Switzerland on a trip. Fantastic country, by the way. I'd recommend anyone to go there, though you need to win a few bets to get your bank balance going because it's not the cheapest of countries. But yeah, tough place to go. I think Young Boys get a result. I'm not saying they're going to win the game, but I could see this being like a 2-2 draw along those sort of lines. I do like the goals as well. Can't disagree. Over 2.75. This would probably be my strongest pick actually in the Champions League tonight as well. Over 2.
Just one other thing, Steve, very quickly, just to say on this game, potentially very watchable as well, isn't it? Because you've mentioned the stadium and you've mentioned the support, and Young Boys at home, they can have a real go here. They tend to play that way anyway in the Swiss League games because they used to dominate in matches. I think this will be a really watchable game for anybody who's wondering which game to tune in on tonight.
Thanks very much for the comments, by the way. Anyone joining live, feel free to ask a question or put a comment in. We'll try and get them on the screen. Claudio, welcome in there. He made some very good points. We'll talk about the results from the weekend show on when we record tomorrow. Don't you worry about that. And yeah, VAR, that's a big point, of course, and is huge in football these days. A lot of people fancying Jason Spurlock, their Malmo team total over 1.5 plus 110. That looks a good price actually at home. It doesn't feel like a 1-0 game really either, does it? Got to be honest with you. Simon there saying be careful with the overs because there's millions at stake. We did touch on that at the top of the show and we talked about it yesterday, but the goals kind of flowed. I think what's happened is we've got a lot of teams at this stage who are quite offensive. That's the thing. It doesn't matter how much is at stake. If your natural positive tactics are, to be going forward quite a lot, there's not really that many negative teams left in this competition that I'm aware of. But yeah, it is a point. I wouldn't bet heavily on this round. It's not a round to go stupid on because there is a hell of a lot going at stake. Just one more match to talk about is the Midtjylland game. FC Midtjylland against Slovan Bratislava. This for me is not a game to get heavily involved in. The Danish champions against the Slovak champions. I think Bratislava are going to come here and try and basically get a draw, or they would. If you offered Slovan Bratislava a 1-0 defeat right now, I think they would take it. There has been, just looking at my sheet now, there has been some money on the overs for this game as well. Surprise, surprise. Overs are really popular this evening. Over 2.5 goals is -132 in that game. I actually think this is the best chance of an under though on the night. I think this could be 1-0 or 2-0 to Midtjylland. I don't think Bratislava will score in the game, and I think it might be a more cagey affair. Tough one, this one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think actually the goals were quite low, weren't they, in the last round? I think for each of these two sides, Midtjylland beat Ferencváros, I think, and Slovan Bratislava, I think it was Apoel they beat. One thing I would say about this game, Steve, I don't have a strong view on this either. I think the UEFA rankings, the much maligned UEFA rankings, can be quite useful on these matches. I was just having a look as we were prepping for the show at the league rankings. We all know who the big leagues are in Europe, don't we? But for these ties between sides that you don't watch very often, I do think the UEFA league rankings can be quite useful. And, if people are wondering why Midtjylland are such a short price to win at home here, Denmark is ranked the 13th strongest league in Europe, and the Slovakian league is way down in 24th place. So that's quite a big gap between the two, and it does show the relative strengths to some degree of the champions. So the price on Midtjylland makes a lot of sense, but I didn't have a strong view on this game. You'd expect Midtjylland to win. I do think at those odds, they're very short. They may not attract that much attention from people. So it was a game for me really to take a watching brief on ahead of the return fixtures.
I would agree. I would lean towards the -1 Asian handicap on Midtjylland. I think you probably push at worst, but there's probably quite a strong chance of a push as well. It depends what sort of bets you like, really, in that sort of capacity. John Schreiber asked about Bordeaux. I think we need a whole episode to talk about Bordeaux. Maybe on request, that could be sorted between me and you, James, and someone else. But
Steve, we can do a 1 hour special for you whenever you want.
It's going to have to be, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then Simon there, it's great to see so many Scandinavian teams do well. I must say, it's been a while since they've really announced themselves in the Champions League group phase. There's one Conference League match today. I don't actually have a pick in it. I said yesterday I lean towards Noah of Armenia, and they did actually claim a very easy 3-0 win. My lean today in the Conference League would be on Vitoria Guimaraes of Portugal against Zrinjski, Mostar of Bosnia. Guimaraes are a big favourite, the Portuguese side, and I would look at the handicap on the -1.5 handicap at -120 here. The thing with Portuguese sides, and we said this off air, James, is that they just don't always rack up the score. They're doing the bare minimum enough to win the game. If you offered Guimaraes 1-0, they'd probably take it, actually. There have been some money, again, surprise, surprise, there's been money for the over 2.5 goals in this match today. -162 now at the time of going live. So tough one, Zrinjski. Not a lot of people. They were in the Conference League group stages last year, so don't underestimate them. But I think the Portuguese league is a lot stronger overall. Tough game.
It's a tough game. Again, I would look at the rankings there if you're wondering about the prices and trying to get at least a very basic idea of why the lines are where they are. That's a good starting point, but it's tough, isn't it, to see past the Portuguese side at home against a team from a much weaker league there.
I think 2-0 correct score could be on the cards there for those who do like a correct. Yeah, Noah, I was annoyed. I didn't place a single wager on them myself, but I was so close to doing it. 3-0 win. They look like they're going to be in the Conference League group stages, though, so we're going to be able to talk about them on future live shows. We're going to move to South America. We've been doing a Copa Libertadores section on this show recently. We've had some decent winners as well. And we're going to start with the strongest match against Penarol. This is a Bolivian side against Uruguayan's team. 6 p.m. Eastern kickoff. And 4-0 win for Penarol last week. It was a massive tip given out on this show on the handicap on Penarol. But now they've got to go to Bolivia and they've got to go to La Paz, which is 3,600 meters high. That's about 12,000 foot, which is ridiculously high. If Dan Roebuck was on the show, he would laugh about this area. He'd be giving me a yellow card for talking about altitude, but it's a massive thing here. Have you ever seen, James? The yellow card was actually shown off screen there, so you have to bring it out again. But have you ever seen a team that's just lost 4-0 and are now -225 just to win the second leg in regulation?
Yeah, it's crazy, right? I mean, I looked at these prices 2 or 3 times to work out, what's going on here. No, I haven't. It's incredible, isn't it, to be that short to win, having been beaten, and it's such a quick turnaround. It's not like we've had a great big length of time since that first leg. It was only last week. So yeah, it's very odd. Obviously, home advantage for the strongest in Bolivia is not your average home advantage. I guess you might argue the other factor is, Penarol can afford to lose this by a couple of goals, 3 goals, and they still go through. So you probably wouldn't want to back them to win on the night, but it's very odd. And it just shows the impact that playing at home, has for a Bolivian team at that sort of altitude. Makes it difficult, doesn't it, in terms of the betting on the game, Steve, to be honest, because it feels like it's a tie that's already done and dusted with Penarol 4-0 up. But then you wonder, how much can the strongest claw back into the game because of that advantage they've got playing at home?
This is my strongest pick of the show. No pun intended. -1.25 Asian handicap pick on the strongest here. Not Bolivar. That's the other team in Bolivia. Penarol, their players might be on oxygen by the end of this game. Seriously, the mask might be out by the side. It's so high. It's so hard to adapt here. Uruguay is not exactly the most mountainous of countries, is it? Certainly when the area where Penarol are from. I think the strongest win this by 2 goals or more. I don't know if they're going to turn around a 4-0 deficit, but I could see this being 2-0 or 3-0 to the strongest, especially the second half. Look in the second half. That's when Penarol are really going to suffer in this game. So at half time, I'd be getting on the strongest on the handicap in play. Right. So there's 2 more matches left to to look at in the Copa Libertadores. I've not really got a big any particular lean on the final 2 games, James. But take it away if you've got anything you like in the Palmeiras against Botafogo game, or River Plate against Talleres, all Brazilian matchup in the first match, and all Argentinian clash in the second.
Yeah, the Palmeiras Botafogo game, I think this is a great game. A game between 2 real heavyweight Brazilian sides who are up near the top of the table in Serie A. That's the Brazilian Serie A, not the Italian Serie A. So they're really well matched. I think Botafogo are top in the league at the moment. I think Palmeiras are only 5 points behind them. First leg was very close. It was a 2-1 win to Botafogo. So it's really perfectly poised this for a fantastic second leg game. And I felt the price on Palmeiras to win was actually to win in 90 minutes. That is, was actually a little bit short, minus 134 to win. The tie is plus 250, and Botafogo are plus 445. So I wouldn't get involved in the match market. I think it'd be a great watch. I think it'd be a really intense game. Honestly, I think going into it, and I'd be very interested to know what the viewers think in the comments about these 2 sides. I actually think both teams will fancy their chances here because, 2-1 shows it was a close first leg. They play each other a lot, obviously, domestically as well. So it's a massive game, and it's very tough to call. But there was one pick, Steve, on the game that I really like. I went through all the markets on this match, and the pick is on Luis Enrique of Botafogo to score a goal. Now, Luis Enrique tends to play on the right wing of a front 3. He was dangerous in the first leg. He scored in the first leg. He's dangerous cutting inside from that position. He's plus 750 with Bet Rivers at the moment to get a goal. Now, it looks like a really big price to me. That I think he's something like the 12th or the 13th biggest price among the Botafogo players in the market to actually get on the score sheet. I think he's a better goal scorer than those prices would suggest. Looking at the team news, it looks like he'll be starting. Now, we don't know for sure, but it looks like he'll be starting. So Luis Enrique, if you're looking for maybe a small stakes wager on someone to score in this game, he would be my pick for Botafogo. Plus 750 to score. I think he's something like plus 1600 to score the first goal, which would, that's not my market. I don't get involved in the first goal scorer market, but it's obviously a big price as well. So, that was my pick on the game. I think it will be quite open. I think Palmeiras, they're obviously a goal down. They're going to have a go here. I think Botafogo will play the same way. Looking at the 2 sides generally, there tends to be, in my opinion, a bit more quality up front from these 2 sides than defensively from what we've seen so far this season. So really looking forward to this game. And I think that pick on Luis Enrique at big odds, that would be my play on the match.
There's been quite a few saying in the comments they like both teams to score yes in this game, and feeling it's going to be quite an open contest. There's been money for Palmeiras have to win, don't they? The first leg was 2-1, I think, and there's been money for Palmeiras today. Minus 137 now on the money line, and that's often, I think, Will White used to talk about this on the European show last year on the UEFA matches, the factor that you have to win a match to turn around the deficit is worth something in terms of the line. So plenty of Palmeiras money. And in the final game, the River Plate against Talleres match, River Plate taking a 1-0 advantage to hope. They don't have to win River Plate, by the way. So be very careful about backing them minus 159. A draw will do them absolutely fine. But the big money move in that game has been on the under 2.5 goals. Which is now as short as minus 167. It's a very low scoring league, is Argentina. So it's a very
low scoring league, Steve. And like you say, the way that tie's set up with River Plate ahead, they don't have to do anything, do they? Can sit back and ask, the away team to attack them there. So I think I wouldn't get involved in this game myself, but I can fully understand why the unders line is so short there.
Yeah. Okay, well, just before we go, a market review, some notable Wednesday wagers. There's actually a big bet in the Copa Sudamericana, the UEFA Europa League of South America, on Independiente Medellin on the money line, minus 150, 4-figure bet there, $1,500 against Palestino. That's the Colombian side, Independiente Medellin. On the baseball, we've got 2 big bets on the Giants today. Giants money line against the White Sox, nearly $5,000 wagered on the Giants today on the baseball. And just wanted to look back on yesterday. There was some some big bets, some winners and losers. $27,000 on the Yankees money line was a loser for one particular bettor yesterday. So a good one for the books there. The Phillies as well. The Phillies lost at a -154 favorite, and nearly 40,000 combined loser there on the Phillies. So it's a good day for the books on the baseball yesterday, James. Someone did have a good win on the Cubs on the money line, $14,000 bet there against the Tigers to win, and also a winner on the Red Sox money line against the Astros at +106, $12,000 winner there at +106. You're not turning that down, are you? That's a very, very good wager, whoever that was. So congratulations to that particular person. But yeah, great. It's been great having you on, James. Thanks everyone who's joined in with the comments in the chat. It's been really active today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Really loving these live shows. And we've got 2 more this week. I've got professional gambler Will White with me tomorrow to dissect a massive Europa League card. And then on Friday, we've got Lewis Jones is back on Friday to check out it's a big match on Friday night and into the Premier League weekend. But James, thanks for having you, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Stay safe, everyone. See you around. Good luck with all your wagers today. Remember to gamble responsibly.